Coach Sal, so glad to have you here. And before we get into, as we always do, sort of the technicalities of the game, and I know you were chatting up some of the players that we were just talking here, Les Brown, Marwan Hay, just those two. A little word on those guys. They were pretty good, weren't they?
Oh, they were great players, and they're great individuals around the community. You talk to Brian Simmons out of Oklahoma. Then you talk to Marwan Hayes, who was out of Colorado. Then you talk to Les Brown, who was out of Colorado State. Now you're talking to a man that came out of Kansas State.
K-State, that's right. And again, like so many of them, make this place your home.
That's it. And this is what's so great about the Canadian League, I think. Guys come up here and they don't want to leave after they get here, myself included. And I really, these guys, what things they talk about, I lived through with those guys, and they were just wonderful people, and they still are.
Well, that's great stuff, and I'm kind of eager to start talking some more football. We've been telling stories for the last half hour, but let's dive into this game a bit. Obviously, Toronto's got a lot of things to like if you're on that Argos side, but I'd rather focus on the Hamilton side for right now and some of the improvements we've seen as of late. There's a few key factors that I think have led to their sort of turnaround from what you see and kind of feel about this team, even though there's only been one game in a row, so it's not a huge streak or nothing, but they've had, controlling the time of possession, the flow of the game, being able to run the ball. Only 1 2-and-out last week. The penalties are down. They averaged 11 in the first 8 games. Now they've only had 9 in the last 2 games, and only 2 turnovers in the last 2 games. Kind of, those are the biggest areas of improvement to me. What are you seeing, and how do you feel about that?
Well, I think you summed it up very well. If you look at the BC game, it was a full team effort. If you look at the offense, all of the formation changes that were there, and Brian Simmons talked about spoon feeding. And I think they had a big spoon when they went into BC because they really made some adjustments. And they went to a line blocking scheme of zone. And that gave Butler the opportunity to read that hole and make his cut in the game. Now, Butler, I think, ended up with 154 yards in that ball game, both running and receiving. On the defensive side.
Hang on 1 second. Sorry. Can we explain what is the difference between a zone blocking scheme and a man blocking scheme, or what is the alternative to zone blocking scheme?
If you look as a fan, if you look at that offensive line and you see everyone on the offensive line take off in the same direction, that's a zone scheme. What they're doing is they're picking up the man that's in the gap next to them, into the inside or to the outside, whichever it happens to be. And with that zone scheme, you're moving everything in one direction. When you're man blocking, you're taking on the man in front of you. Maybe with a double team where you can do that up to a linebacker to get him out of the play. But the difference is the aggressiveness of going straight forward versus going laterally for the first step or two and then up the field into a vertical blocking scheme.
So if an offensive lineman doesn't have anyone in front of them and they're doing a zone blocking, are they just kind of following like a path, a direction of the run, and then whoever shows up they kind of take? And how does that work?
Yeah, that's exactly the way we described it, and the way we did it was we said you're on a railroad track. Once you get on that track, run down that rail, and whatever comes on that rail, you knock it off that rail. And in this fashion, you're all going in a direction. Now, this gives you all of the different things that we saw in the BC game, where the quarterback can pull the ball and go in an opposite direction. Where now Toronto has got more things to think about. Think about the fact that we went to a tight end formation, okay? We used a slot back for the tight end. We used a fullback for the tight end. We used an offensive lineman for the tight end. We went tight end with a wing, a guy slot back in tight. All of these things changed the thinking of Toronto. Now they have a lot more to worry about and a lot more to think about. And the other thing that I saw in there that really impressed me was we went up under center. When your quarterback goes up under center, if you want to throw a quick pass, that's the best place to be. Why? Because the ball comes up with the laces right to the quarterback's hand, and he goes 1-2 throw. When he's in a shotgun, he's got to find the laces to make that same throw.
It's interesting you brought that up. I remember we spoke about bringing extra guys in to protect, whether it's that wing back or tight end or extra receiver. When Scott Milanovic first took over and when Taylor Paulo first came in. And you're absolutely right last game. We even saw some of that zone blocking scheme with a fake pitch and kind of a half bootleg or a rollout, and we saw Taylor Powell able to hit some of the receivers for key first down. So I love that. Great pickup there. What about the defense you were going to mention?
Defense, they had 4 takeaways in the game. So they're playing much more aggressively on the defensive side. I know Les talks about being very aggressive on practice time, and that leads to takeaways during a ball game. In this game, I don't think you can take your free safety out of the middle. I think he's got to stay in the middle of the field, whether it's the real free safety or whether you rotate someone into the free safety. Against Chad Kelly, you don't want to get out of the middle of the field. And on special teams, you had a kickoff return on a short field kick in which we were able to pick it up and take it all the way. So that's a complete group of players playing together as a team.
Area of concern that's been like this all season long and hasn't really changed as of late is the slow starts. We started off the show talking about how key it would be to start fast and kind of control that flow of the game, keep this crowd pumped up and into the game. I mean, Hamilton has 0 points in 5 of the last games in the first quarter, and I believe it's still at 1 touchdown this whole season.
That's it.
In the first quarter.
Unbelievable.
Which is ridiculous, and we're talking not a lot of points in that first quarter. How do you correct that?
Well, I think they're on that right track because, as you talked about, they only had 1 2-and-out in the BC game. That's tremendous. That's a great deal. In the last 16 games, the team that won second down conversions won 14 of those 16 games. So when you look at it from that perspective, your quick start is basically moving the chains, get the first downs, make your second down conversions. And in this fashion, you control the clock, as you said, and you control the line of scrimmage.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that a lot. And Toronto now, looking at them, you mentioned we had a return for a touchdown on a kick return. It was that onside kick, so it's kind of like a one-off there. But their punt returner has been outstanding so far this year, and in all of the games so far this season, they have had a better average starting field position than the opposing team. And I think that's a big reason for another reason for their success. How do you stop that, or what do you as a coach, what would be sort of your philosophy coming into this game against a team that has that much success in the punting game?
Well, I think you got to start with your punter. He has to position that ball for his cover team. And the cover team has to be in their lanes and stay in their lanes. If you get blocked out of your lane, get back in it right now. Your lane is yours to protect. And on the outside, make sure your killers on the outside stay on the outside. Force that player, in this case Javon Leake, who's got 4 return touchdowns, as you mentioned, make him go back into the middle of the field. So I think punting the ball correctly in the right place and covering in your lane.
Would you consider kind of cross-field punting and sort of misdirection punting against a returner like this?
If you've got a single punt returner back there, that's a good idea, especially if you're with the wind, where you can control the direction of the ball.
Interesting.
Coach, we look at Joel Figueroa, the return of him at left tackle. What does he mean to this team? Or what can he mean to this team?
Actually last week we had a great group up front. They did a great job, and we have to give some love to that offensive line. They did what we expected them to do, and in the past we've been critical. Joel Figueroa was brought in here to be the left tackle. Now he has to show that on the field. And when we look at Labor Day, and this is a great analogy. In pro golf, Saturday is called moving day, okay? In the CFL, Labor Day is moving day. If you win on Labor Day, you're moving in the right direction.
Coach, we're running out of time here. What makes Labor Day so special for you?
Oh, I really think it's the fans. When you see, and we saw it on TV last night with the Saskatchewan fans, when you see 30,000 people in the stands here in Hamilton just screaming their lungs out, it really gets the players in a position where they want to do something well for those fans.
Especially when it's when the opposing team have the football on second down.
Yeah, you can really make it tough on them. And remember this, Chad Kelly's got, in the last 2 games, got 15 explosive plays. You've got to be able to keep those explosive plays down in this particular game.
We are running out of time, but I have to ask you, what do you like, or what do you see with Chad Kelly? Why is he having such success and sometimes doing things his fundamentals are not right, but he gets away with it?
Well, because he's a great athlete.
Right.
And second to that, the fact that he will run the ball. He's only been sacked 10 times this year. Yeah, I don't think he's been sacked in the last couple of games because he will take off with the football and protect the ball. And that brings me back to a point. Last week, Powell did that for Hamilton. He'd rather take the sack than to lose the football. And I thought that was a growing position for him.
Coach Sal, love it that you've been here to join us. Again, give us that football look at this Labor Day Classic. Certainly appreciate your time. Love our chats and look forward to next week already.
Yeah, so do I. And let's get it on. Go Cats, go.